For your viewing pleasure, this broadcast of the Municipal Council meeting of Alpena is made possible by the funding provided by the City of Alpena. Thank you for your generosity.
Good evening and welcome to Alpena City Council meeting February 17th, 2014. Call the order, please.
Johnson? Here. Nielsen?
Here.
Nowak?
Here.
Sexton?
Here.
Walagora?
Here. Rise for pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone had the opportunity to read the minutes from regular session February 3rd, 2014. No issues there. No changes. Any modifications to the agenda this evening? Okay, citizens appearing before City Council on agenda and non-agenda items are allowed 5 minutes each to address your concerns. This is the only time during a council meeting that citizens are allowed to address council. If you do, please come to the podium and state your name and address for our records.
I'm Paul, staff. I just wanted to, number one, thank you for approving that liquor license for the Real Fun Festivus event. It was held Friday with a tremendous success, great turnout, and I just wanted that in the tournament. Everything went very well, and I appreciate that. So I also just wanted to remind everybody here and the press as well that the CI Joint Council and Planning Commission meeting is tomorrow for the annual review of the capital improvement plan, and that starts at 6 o'clock and goes to 8. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Adam.
What's the
Is that the max?
Yeah.
What else? Okay, on the consent agenda, item A, bills to be allowed in the amount of $262,271.83.
I move we allow the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Nowak?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Okay, no announcements, no proclamations, no public hearing. Report of officers is A, Treasurer's Financial Report, July 1st, 2013 through January 31st, 2014.
Since I just reported at the last council meeting on the financials, we have no surprises, nothing out of the ordinary. I thought if you just flip back to the back under cash balances and investments, like the third page from the back on your financials, all the way to the end. It'll be right before your charts. It might be way. I gotta remember you're on the laptops now.
All right.
Okay. I was just going to point out, yeah, it's just nice to see that history for the last 3 years on all of our funds. Just wanted to point out the Major Street Fund. We've been gathering the last couple of years trying to set aside a little bit of money because we're going to be doing Grant Street, so we need a little extra money in there. The Marina, if you noticed, it's a negative this year. That's because the dredging has not been fully reimbursed. We've paid a lot of the expense but have not received the money for that. Doesn't mean that we'll end the year in the negative, we won't, but for right now, as of January at the top, that's as of that date. The salt and the paving, we're starting to get a little bit of money in there. That's an internal fund where we buy our bulk salt and things like that, and then we charge them out as people use them. Obviously, with the snow this year and the ice, that's a very busy fund right now, using a lot of salt. And then the general trust, that's not our money, that's tax money that we give to all the entities that we collect for, if you've wondered what the general trust fund was for. Everything else looks pretty normal. The capital improvement, if you'll notice, it's about the 6th or 7th one in the top part from the bottom. That's where we sold the Civic Center. We put that money in there to take care of this building, like our HVAC and our windows, and then the marina. We're going to take care of that in the cemetery. It won't go very far, but at least it's something. So if you wonder what that was for. And then our retiree employee health care, that's the one that we're trying to fund. We are nowhere near funding it where we need to. It's $4.5 million in liabilities we have. But it's like the retirement fund where we're trying to get it funded. So each year we put a little bit in it that we can. There's been some bad years where we haven't put much in. We're going to try to get back up to about 5%. So that'll be the goal. We'll see how that plays out during budget. Perpetual lot care, I think everybody knows, is our cemetery fund. And that one we can't spend just on day-to-day operations. So you see that's just slowly continues to grow. I try to invest a little bit of it and get some interest. And then everybody knows the equipment fund buys our fire trucks and it buys our DPW equipment. Retirement is the retirement fund. That's kind of holding its own the last 3 years. So, are there any questions on any of the funds?
Karen, when do you expect the state to pay for the rest of the
Dredging? I don't know. Don, have you heard anything?
Just waiting on getting it finalized up.
Okay.
Yeah, we just got the final approval from the contractor, the dredging contractor, and we should be able to submit that. We're verifying that information. We should be able to submit it, and we can get, I think, 80% right away,
Oh.
and then the other 20% will be a little bit longer.
So we'll probably get it by the end of the fiscal year. Yeah.
And the bills for snow plowing and stuff, have you seen those starting to come in? Has there been a lot of, I'm assuming a lot of overtime and such on the
Yeah.
weekends and so on? Is that going to really screw that?
Oh, it's hard. It's hard when we budget for a normal winter, and then now we have a not normal winter.
You know we're in Michigan, right?
Yes. $65,000 in salt we used in January, which is the largest amount Julie said she's seen, and she's been here about 30 years. So, yeah, we'll see those bills start coming in.
Okay.
Yeah, we're already nearing what we had budgeted for labor for snow and ice and some of the supplies. So, yeah, we're going to be having to do some budget amendments and the like around, once we get the final numbers in this, to make it work. But just we'll deal with it.
Could I have it receive and file if everybody is good? Okay.
Second.
Noah?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks.
Good update. Bids tonight, we have the Septage Waste Transfer Pump Electrical Operating System.
On February 11th, the city received an open bids for the electrical work associated with the septage waste transfer pump over the water recycling plant. Bids were sent out to various local electric firms, as well as posted on the City of Alpena's website, with 2 bids received as follows. Worth Electric, $5,435, and Thunder Bay Electric, $7,600. Upon review of the bids received, it is my recommendation as city engineer to award the septic waste transfer pump electrical operating system project to Worth Electric in the amount of $5,435.
Rich, is this a complete update of all electrical, basically rewiring right from the...
What it is, we've got the new septic transfer pump, and we needed to get the electric upgraded to service it. So it's just associated with getting the electrical upgraded to service that pump.
Pretty simple.
I move we award the septic waste transfer pump electrical operating system to Worth Electric, $5,435.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
Thank you, Rich. Communications and petitions. Pardon me. This evening we have Relay for Life 24-hour event request. Want me to read that?
Oh.
Should everybody read it? It doesn't matter.
That's to you.
It was to you.
Sure.
I
So
don't
go
wanna
ahead
say
and
hello,
read
Karen.
Hello, Karen.
That's you.
Yeah, that would be me. We would like to request placement on the City Council agenda for February 17th of 2014. Our goal is to move our yearly Relay for Life 24-hour event from the Alpena County Fairgrounds to a downtown location and use the Heritage Trail as our relay path. This year's event is August 16th and 17th. We have permission from the property owner, Jeff Konchak, to set up our relay activities and relay camp on the property between Fletcher Brewery and the Fletcher Paper Mill. Please see the attachment. We plan to use the trail and sidewalks from 2nd Avenue Bridge to 9th Street with the inclusion of Rotary Island for various stages of our event. To date, we have met with city staff consisting of Greg Sundin, Rich Solinger, Bill Forbush, Joel Jett, Adam Paul, as well as Leslie Dort of the DDA. From these meetings, we have received staff approval to camp on the property, the variance for one community campfire as specified in dimension by the fire chief, the awareness of our local police for the event, as well as a uniformed officer on a bicycle from 10 to 6 a.m. by the police chief. We have also received full support from the DDA. The city staff was amazing, positive, and very helpful. We are very grateful. We would like to request a noise variance from the council for the duration of our event. This is not unlike what we have requested in the past at the fairgrounds location. However, we are appreciative of the council's consideration on this matter for our new location. And this is from the Relay for Life Tri-Chairs.
Greg, in your opinion, are we, so this is, they have the property and the authority of the police department and fire department for what they'd like to do on private property. So are we in fact only approving the noise variance? Is that the only?
Well, we've talked to them regarding the trail itself and the bypath of utilizing that, and so that would be okay. One thing that was brought up, and I guess this would probably be directed towards Rich and Joel, will it be, or maybe you, Lisa, necessary to barricade off this portion of the bypath? I'm not sure we discussed that. Concern being, if depending upon the number of walkers, and if somebody comes by, or you get a group, or even a single bicyclist, could that be a problem in terms of they're riding through and suddenly you have a group of 8 or 10 walkers together and of having a conflict? And
it really shouldn't be a problem. It's a 10-foot wide path in there. There's adequate width. And it's just a matter of each entity taking a little bit of caution and courtesy.
it may be that at the, where the,
Signage, we're gonna have signage up
Okay.
for sure, kind of warn people.
right,
what's
that's what I was
going
gonna say, as long as where people would enter into this area, we have signage saying that there are gonna be walkers, hopefully that would be enough for anybody who's biking.
I ride my bike through that area quite a bit, and sometimes even if there's only 2 or 3 people and they're walking away from you, it's hard. It's only a recommendation from me, but I would think that because it's, and is the map that's in here established pretty much from the brewery to the walking bridge is really, and then over to the island is what we're talking about. It's not like in the entire loop or anything.
Well, what we'd like to do, in theory, is we'd like to offer, because we have people who literally run all night long. So we'd like to say endurance lap, challenge lap,
Okay.
And then even do a little bit smaller track, because all of us with our kids our kids are not gonna be, so we would like to kind of encompass it, but I don't think you're gonna have hordes of people
Right.
all along that huge portion of the track.
Maybe in that one area, it's a long way from now, but you might consider, some signage that says, please walk your bicycle from here till 9th Avenue or
do that.
But that, there again, might depend on how many people you have.
And actually, we would appreciate it, if they did walk their bike, it would actually benefit as far as what the Cancer Society likes to see at their relays anyway, because we don't usually have bikes at our relays. So it would actually be great if we could put some signage up, just asking out of courtesy, just ask them to walk it.
Lisa,
Yep.
how do you plan on handling the vending? Because usually, when
Right.
you walk around the loop, there's all the vending
Yep.
and stuff.
We're not gonna vend all the way around. We're going to, in our camp area, the loop is going to, in some fashion, include where we camp. So if any of you haven't been to Relay, when we're at the fairgrounds, we camp inside and we camp outside the track. And any teams that wanna sell to continue fundraising, the whole time you're walking around that track, you can buy whatever it is we might still be selling. So what Sean's referencing is, what are we gonna do with the rest of that area, or but we're not gonna spread vending out this year. We're gonna try to kind of keep it consolidated in that community between the brewery and the paper mill.
Do you think, is that enough camping for you?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of space there. So what we need to do now, once we know and everything's great and okayed, we'll logistically really lay those out. We cram into the fairgrounds, and this is gonna be very spacious compared.
Well, it's a nicer venue, in the past, but if it's raining or it's too dry, you've got all those issues, and on this area, I think you're much more weatherproof.
Yeah, and we've got the brewery building available to us, and we also will have the NOAA building, depending on if we can staff it, So everybody's been great. We're gonna be able to have electricity, there's even the option of being able to have water, for our campsites, or a few of them. But I think the venue would be great, the DDA is thrilled, and the DDA really wants us, of course, to come across the river. So I think during the day, we'd like to maybe talk to Dr. Dargis about some type of an event on his property across the river, but just baby steps. We just want to get it there this year and get our feet wet and rock it out.
You're done, I'm sorry. Do you have an idea which way your stage is going to be facing? Because I know at the fairgrounds, we've had the noise variance because entertainment's been going on all night, but you're actually broadcasting back into the fairgrounds and not across the river. I'm assuming you're going down toward your camping area then?
We've got a couple of thought processes on that, and another thing that's changed this year, when we're at the fairgrounds, we can't even hear it. So Sean knows, here's the stage on 11th Avenue, and our campers in the back can't hear it. So we would like to upgrade our sound, first of all, which we might as well be honest about it. We thought maybe we could set up and shoot towards the brewery, or we thought we could set up and shoot towards the river. But then George brought up that might not, that might amplify the sound. So we're kind of willing to see what works. We'd like to actually even have visual that you can see across the river, and look towards our campgrounds, and we'd actually like to have a visual going on as well. But
Great event. Awesome event.
Yeah, I have just concerns about, how the people in the neighborhood might feel with some noise and concerns about the bike path, but I'm certainly willing to at least see how it goes, give you an opportunity to see how it goes, because it's a perfect place to walk, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. We were also, of the neighborhoods, we were thinking too, there's just a letter we can put out to those, especially the houses behind Fletcher's Street there, and just let them know, and let them know this is what's going on kind of ahead of time, and sort of invite, kind of try to embrace them. And then we've also had some advice on, embracing and maybe not embracing, just for safety and things. But we would like to kind of be upfront and see if we can get people to just tolerate it for the one night.
I think that would probably speak volumes, and there's apartments on the other side of the river. She might consider all of that. I think that would really be helpful. So. Anything else?
We approve the noise variance for the Relay for Life event.
Second.
Did you get it?
I think I had it just by
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
All right, next on the agenda, unfinished business. A is water and sewer proposal rate increase. We have a staff presentation, some discussion, and we'll also set a public hearing.
Before Rich actually does his presentation of the proposed rate structure, which is the build rate structure, wanted to provide some background in that regarding what got us to here, and which involves the unified system that was presented to the township back and I don't remember the exact date now, in January, when we had the joint meeting at the Aplex, and then, of course, the township had a public hearing on it on February 3rd. At that time, the Board of Trustees conducted a public hearing on the city's proposal for the two governmental units, water and sewer utilities, to be operated as a single unified system. Based on statements made at that meeting, it is apparent that there are ongoing misunderstandings and misconceptions regarding the unified proposal and the operation of the city water and city sewer utilities themselves. The city believes it is important for the utility ratepayers, both city and township, to understand the facts relative to the utilities operation and the proposal that was offered by the city. Basically, what we did as staff, with input from all the council, is we drafted a summary of statement and facts regarding the proposed city township unified water and sewer system. This document, I'm just going to hit a few highlights just to give some history. The document itself will be available to the press and the public. Oops, there aren't a whole lot of public here, but the press anyways, after this meeting. And also, it will be on our webpage tomorrow, and we will have hard copies available at City Hall and the library. So for anybody who wishes to see or and pick these up and review them. There were various statements that were either made then or at various times regarding this proposal, and one has been that the city's intent is to take over and control the township system. It is not our intent to simply take over their system. Each entity will own its own system under that proposal. What it would be is managed, though, as a single unit. Basically, the city's proposal is that would be done by United Water, which has operated our system for over 25 years, and that they would then operate it primarily. What we were looking at, and it's all would be open to negotiation, is that the township would contract with the city, which would contract with United Water to do that operation of that. The thing that we wanted more than anything else was to be able to sit down and talk about this idea. When we first went into negotiations, we were asked what our ideas were, and as were explained at the joint meeting, we came up with 3 ideas: a unified system, an authority, and renegotiating the past agreement that is expired. And we felt that this was the best for the long-term sustainability of the system, but also what was in the best interest of the end user, whether they were in the city or whether they were in the township. We knew that there were going to be issues, both from the city's point of view, from our perspective, as well as the townships. Some of those would overlap and be the same, and others, they'd be very distinctive one to the other. What we wanted to do was first, which Rich did, was to see if it even made sense from a rate structure. Could you come up with a rate that seemed workable? We sat down, we got data from the township. Based on the data we had, the best data available, we came up with a tentative proposed rate structure. And in our opinion, it was one that was at least workable. But it was nowhere near, in essence, handing them a proposal and saying, here it is. All it did was look at the numbers to see if they made any sense. The devil was going to be in the details, and that's where we wanted the township to put together a list of issues, the city put together a list of issues, and then let the attorneys for each party get together and go through those issues, see what worked, what could be resolved, and if an agreement could actually be put together. It would then have to then go back to both bodies to be reviewed and voted on. So even if the attorneys come to an agreement, it does not mean that you have a final agreement, not until it's approved by both parties. Unfortunately, though we did request it several times, we never got that list. We never got to the stage of talking for the two parties to actually sit down and talk about the nuts and bolts of how this would work, if it could work. And that was our goal, was just to sit down and talk about that. and see if we could make it work. Ultimately, the only written communication we received was a letter of rejection in December of the proposal. What we looked at was that it was going to be a joint effort to put this together, and we knew that since a big issue was going to be capital or replacement dollars to look to maintain the system into the future, replace worn out sections, whether it be at one of our plants, whether it be in the collection and distribution systems, and that would have to be by a joint effort of creating a joint capital improvement plan for the system, and that's how dollars would be allocated based on those priorities. Another key issue is that the city would just simply be able to, if we did this, create the rates at whatever we wanted to. Basically set the rates at what we wanted and almost at our whim. Well, that is the last thing that we're able to do. One, we cannot just legally set arbitrary water and sewer rates. They must all be justified based on costs. The cost to operate, to maintain, to pay debt, and to pay for replacement. And so those rates would have to be established based on those criteria. And this is going to be required in our new state operating permit that will be coming up in about 2 years or so, that we have to show that we have a rate structure that will support not only operation, maintenance, and debt, but replacement and ongoing replacement, which every system has to have. If you can't fund that, they will probably make us fund it and to set rates accordingly. One of the things in terms of us just, of the city, when I say us, I mean the city arbitrarily setting rates. Since the agreement expired in July of 2012, and actually prior to that, for the last 3 years, the city has not raised the township rates at all, either for water that they buy or sewage that we treat. That rate has stayed constant. During that same time, and comments I know were made at the last meeting of the township that they have to raise their rates because when the city raises the rates to the township, they have no choice. For 3 years, we have not raised rates at all. And during that time, the township has raised their water rates by nearly 26.5%, over 8% a year, and water by 21.5%, with no increase from the city. That has generated approximately a little over $500,000 a year in additional funding to the township. But none of that is due to anything that the city has done in terms of rates. A question has come up regarding debt, that the township is being asked to join in with the city because we need them to help subsidize our debt. Does the city have debt? Do the city's utilities? Of course they do. I am not aware, and Rich is not, and I don't think our consultants are aware of any full-service water and sewer utility. And when I say full service, that means ones that has production, distribution, collection, and treatment. That does not have debt. There is no way that you can maintain and either not necessarily expand, but just simply replace and maintain at a high level that you need a system of the magnitude, and we're a small system compared to many, without debt, because you simply would have to have your rates so high to do it on a cash basis that it wouldn't be workable. So yes, we do have debt. However, we are not operating in the red. We are a viable system, and we are maintaining it, and we are doing replacement, simply not at the rate that is recommended based on our CIP and on our consultants' evaluation of what needs to be done. Just to give you an idea, in the last 10 years, the city utilities have invested approximately $12.5 million in the two systems. Now, just over 3 of that's been cash, about $2.6 million in grants, and about $6.9 million in debt, basically primarily bonds, I would say. And we will continue to do that throughout, as long as we have a system, because that is the method by which you must operate to maintain it. So we don't apologize for the fact that we have debt. We know that the township at its next meeting is going to be looking at a couple of proposals of creating their own system. I would be very surprised. In fact, I can almost guarantee that if they go that route, they too will have debt because they won't be able to build it with cash, the system. So those are things that simply we have to deal with. There was a question regarding meter change-outs that if we come to a unified system, that there would be, they would be paying for our water meter change-out. And in reality, yes, they will be paying a proportion of it. Because under a unified system, or if it's under the build system, all customers pay for all improvements, changes, and upgrades in the system. I'm helping to pay as a user for my neighbor's meter. They're paying for ours, helping to pay for mine. The industry and the commercial businesses within our city are helping to pay for those upgrades, even though they themselves were not upgraded. It's simply how the system works. Everybody benefits by having the most efficient system, and these meters do that. The same would be true if under unified we did have any meter change-outs that in the township or other improvements are made. Those costs are shared by all users of the system, whether they be in the city or the township, if it's a unified. There are no boundaries, it's all one system. The last thing I will simply mention very quickly, Rich will get into it more in his presentation, with the build option, that there will be a 62% increase in the township rates and that their users will pay. Ultimately, we have no say over what the final rate is of the Alpena Township end user. That is up to the township. We will establish rates, whatever the council decides on. Those rates will then be what the township buys our water and our treatment services for, and then how they then pass those costs on will be up to them. Whether they absorb them, pass them all on to their customers, that we have no control over. The only thing we can control is what we charge to our customers, which include Alpena Township. There's a number of other things, quite a few other things within this. Again, it will be available. I just wanted to hit a few highlights. At this point in time, the township has not officially rejected the unified system. Based on the comments that were made at their public hearing and the fact that they're going to be entertaining and looking at some proposals for their own, creating their own system, I would say it's not that its chances of being approved are not as high as we had hoped. However, we do not know if that's going to be their final decision or not. That's obviously for them to make what they see in their best interest. In the meantime, we know we need to move ahead with rate changes to our within our rate structure. That's what Rich will be presenting here tonight. And with that, if at some point in time the township determines that it wishes to enter back in, wants to enter into discussions, I don't want to say back into, but actually have discussions regarding the unified rates approach, then any rates that we would adopt under the proposal that Rich is putting forward would be temporary until those a unified approach or agreement would come into place, and then those rates, the new rates, would then supersede what we're talking about tonight. But that is, we will have to wait and see on. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Rich and let him present the build approach.
I knew I shouldn't have let Greg read my slides because he steals all
Material.
My sheet's not yours.
As Greg pointed out before, we looked at the unified system. And this, we are basically calling it the build system because that's what it does, is it's billing all of our customers, every one of our customers, township included, at the same rate as every other customer. There is no special case scenario for any one customer. What's the potential rate structure? The information presented at the October 8, 2013 negotiating session only outlined the potential rates to be charged to all customers of the unified system. As this system was not endorsed by the Alpena Township Board, the city will implement a build rate to all customers, including the Alpena Township, based on the master meter reads. In the event that Alpena Township revises their position and wishes to negotiate a unified system, these rates that I'm proposing tonight would be interim in nature until a new agreement is reached. And as with any service provided, rates will be adjusted annually as warranted by increased costs to provide that service. Every year, electricity goes up for us, natural gas goes up for us, fuel goes up for us. These are all things that, unless we raise rates accordingly, eat into our available funds that we can put towards improvements, upgrades, and replacements of the system. And the information that was provided by Alpena Township and United Water was utilized to refine the build rate analysis, and that information that we received from Alpena Township was used at face value, and that's what we relied on. And the basis of the build system is to provide the lowest rate possible while ensuring the long-term reliability of the city's utility system to all customers, including Alpena Township. What does this rate structure look like? A spreadsheet was developed which incorporated all of the elements and charges and follows the industry standard of accepted rate-making practices. These charges include a ready-to-serve charge, operation and maintenance charge per 1,000 gallons, a debt service charge per 1,000 gallons, billing service charge per bill issued, an infrastructure maintenance charge per 1,000 gallons usage. What I've done, I put the spreadsheets that we use to develop this. And we developed these spreadsheets so it was very easy to change numbers around, to be able to run different scenarios, to see what the impact was on all the customers. We looked at all the various, looked at other communities. I pulled a number of different communities, looked at what their ready-to-serve charges were. The ready-to-serve charges that we have incorporated into here are much lower or significantly lower than many other communities. We felt that these were the bare minimum that we needed to keep, or to keep in place so that we could assume a basic cash flow for all customers. And then we go through our operation maintenance charge, our debt service charge, and the key points of these spreadsheets are highlighted later in the slideshow. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. They're difficult to read. They're pretty small. Thankfully, I put them in big print because somebody's 60 years old and you can't read them anymore. Gotta get my digs in while I can. But on the right-hand side, the bottom line is this scenario generates about $1.952 million, which is available for maintenance and replacement of critical components within our infrastructure system. Next spreadsheet basically looks at what the impact is to our customers out there. What I did is at the bottom, I looked at our residential customers at various use levels to see what the impact was to those folks. And then I also listed our top 10 users, plus I included Ton of Suds Laundry. They're not one of our top 10 users, but they have been here, they've been very vocal, and I wanted to provide that information to them. So they were incorporated into the scenario. But this does show that customer usage and cost comparison Next slide, and I will refer back to these, but in the O&M cost and debt on this spreadsheet, the one thing that we've done here is we've taken our total operation and maintenance costs for the water treatment plant, the distribution system, commercial, the water recycling plant, the collection system. We've totaled those up, divided them by our annual billed volumes to get a cost per 1,000 gallons. And if all that's oil works, if next year we sell 535.72 million gallons of water, then we will generate just enough cash to break even and cover our O&M and our debt costs. If we sell a little bit less, we're going to have to make that up with money that would have been targeted towards maintenance and replacement. If we sell a little bit more water, that's funding that could supplement that. So right now, it's just based on these numbers. But the key thing is that the per 1,000 gallon charge only recoups enough to cover the operation and maintenance or the debt for each one of the utilities. And then this last spreadsheet is one I put together because the question's going to come up. Well, how much is the township going to pay? You know, what's the township going to pay? So what I've done is I've eliminated all the other factors out except for township-related billings, and based on their flow volume and the same O&M costs, debt service costs, infrastructure maintenance charges, they would generate about $2.126 million in sales of those services to Alpena Township. Now, at the very bottom, yeah, that's a 62.486% increase over what they've paid in the past. But you got to realize, our customers have been paying $4.99, $5, $1,000 for water and sewer. They've been buying it for $2.90 for water and $3.47.5 for sewer. They've been buying it at a greatly discounted rate over what you and I and every other customer of the city of Alpena has been able to. Why is that? That's because we had an agreement that our forefathers signed into existence that we had to live with, and we lived within it. That agreement has expired.
Just so people don't hear the wrong number, it says 62% is the increase, but their percentage of the total revenue generated for the whole thing is about 34.
That's
35, right?
Yeah, that's one of my slides that's later on, that while that 2.126 million that they in sales to the city of Alpena represents about, and I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but about 34.7% of our total revenue stream. But it also demonstrates through their sales that they're using about 43% of our water and about 36% of our sewer service, as I recall. And like I said, that's a slide that is later on in here. It's basically because we have, by the agreement, been required to sell that water at such a low rate to Alpena Township, who then resells it at a marked up rate to their customers. If you look at our revenue and expense summary, our total revenue generated under this build scenario is about $6.19 million. Of that, we have expenses in the water and sewer, which total about $4.3 million, giving us available funding from sales of about $1.9 million. And then we have some miscellaneous revenues. Our leachate that comes in, our salt and septage, some of those things, about $60,000 in additional revenue. So that's where all that $1.952 million comes up with. That's available for maintenance and replacement. And then, again, here's just a summary of what that residential customer bill would be. I know previously when we reported on the unified system, we had some folks that were here that says, your rates are gonna be $32 a thousand. No, that's not the case. The rates are set by the formula. They're significantly lower than that. They're the $10, and I don't have numbers right off the top of my head. They're in the slide later. But what we did in going through this, and when I presented this originally back in, I think, November, we built the spreadsheets and we sat down, we run a lot of different scenarios over, well, what if we change this? What impact does that have? And, I'd go down and I'd sit with Greg in his office and he'd tell me I'm trying to get too much money, and I'd say, Greg, I need more money, and we tried to, and I make light of it only because of the number of conversations that Greg and I had over this. There was a lot of back and forth. We ran a lot of different scenarios to see what was workable from a utility standpoint to be able to fund the bare minimum capital we need, but also to try to make it at least palatable to the consumer. Nobody wants to see an increase. Nobody wanted to see a 20-cent increase in gas this weekend, but we did. I mean, those are the facts of life, and that's where we're at. We need to have a rate increase, but we tried to make it something that was at least tolerable. What I've done is I've calculated out some typical monthly bills and equivalent quarterly bills based on the proposed rates. And the sewer would be billed at $5.35 per thousand, and the water would be billed at $4.95 per thousand. A 3,000 gallon per quarter user. Now, in the past, a minimum bill customer was billed an equivalent of 6,000 gallons of usage per quarter, 2,000 gallons a month. What we've done is we've moved away from that minimum bill standard and went to this, basically you pay for 1,000 gallon increments for what you physically use. And of our total customer base, about 23% of our customer base are minimum bill customers. Of those, half of them are at 3,000 gallons or less usage per month. So about 11% of our customers are at that, right around 1,000 gallons a month. So this person who uses 1,000 gallons per month would get a monthly bill of $26.14. That would equate out to a quarterly bill of $78.42. In the past, their quarterly bill was $60.78. So that's about a 29% increase for your minimum bill customer. Mid-use customer, about 12,000 gallons a quarter per use. They would get a monthly bill of about $57.04. An equivalent quarterly bill of $171.20. As compared to in the past, they would have got a bill of about $115.80. About a 47.8% increase. And unfortunately, the increases are kind of lumped right around that 6 to 12, right around Greg's area, that 6 to 12,000 use area. But that's only because we are transitioning away from the minimum bill and going to an actual use. And like I said, this was, in the scenarios we looked at, this was the unfortunate thing of the way we had it set up. The next one we look at is a high volume user. 21,000 gallons per quarter, that's about where my household is at. I use about 21,000 gallons a month. I'd get a monthly bill of $87.94. Equivalent quarterly bill of $263.82. About a 30, as compared to $198.33. It's about a 33% increase. And that's one of the things you see, that as your volumes go up in use, that percentage increase overall that you see from your previous bill goes down slightly. The two trends start to come together. One of the questions, and I'm sure it's going to come up, is what do these rates I mean, these are the rates for our customers, and they're pretty significant increases. What does it mean for the township? What are they gonna see out of this? And the bottom line is that they would be treated as every other customer, the same as Lafarge, the same as myself, the same as any other customer in the city. And as Greg alluded to, city staff cannot define how these increases will impact customers of Alpena Township. That is up for them to decide what impact that would have on their ratepayers and their customers. Greg alluded to, talked about the fact that since 2010, he talked percentages. Since 2010, we have been receiving the same cost per 1,000 gallons from Alpena Township for water and sewer service sales. Over that same time, without any increases from the city, they have raised their rates to their customers by $1.44 for water and $1.27 per 1,000 gallons for sewer. And again, like I said, that's with no increase from the city. I indicated before that Alpena Township marks their rate up that they pay to the city and then resells it. Basically, they take that $2 and roughly 91 cents that they buy it from the city for, add $4.01 to it per 1,000 gallons and sell it to their customers. In the case of the sewer, they buy it for the $3.47, $3.48. They mark it up $3.72 and resell it to their customers. Greg talked about this, and I've talked in great detail with Mike Lewinsky about this and the fact that this future permit language that's going to be included. And some of the folks that have already gone through the permit renewal cycle have had that language included in their agreement. That we have to demonstrate that we have rates in place that can sustain the utility, pay for not only just the day-to-day operations and maintaining our system and keeping it running, but also that we have to be able to fund replacement of all the components and all the key elements in there. That's not to say that we're going to have $15 million sitting on hand to replace every one of our pieces of pipe or a section of plant, but that we at least have funding available coming in so that we can systematically, in a program manner, replace the various components of our plant. And that will be forthcoming. Our permit's about 3 years old. It's a 5-year permit. We're actually working on the rewrite right now of our permitting process. And we should see that probably in about another year, and then we'll have a review period on the year. A couple other things that will be occurring along with this. Right now, the city operates with a declining block rate. So as you use more water, your rate goes down slightly. We will be eliminating that. In looking at that, it impacted very few customers and was not a big cost savings for, or a big detriment to the utility. We will be effective April 1st. That's the timeline that we've given United Water and Mike to go to a monthly billing scenario. So we will be cycling from a quarterly bill to a monthly bill. And there's going to be folks that are going to get a bill sooner than they anticipated, but it's going to be a lot smaller bill. Instead of a quarterly bill, as we transition from that, they will be getting a bill in maybe 1 month or 2 months as opposed to 3. Along with that, we've been working with Alpena Power on potentially joining, putting our bills together in the same mailing, and so we're working with the same company that they work with. This company will basically be generating our bills, but it gives us the advantage of electronic payment, pay with e-check, pay by credit card. You're going to have the same options to pay your water and sewer bill as you do with your Alpena Power Company bill. They are still, Alpena Power Company, at last time we talked, is still interested in potentially joining in joint billing, which would obviously reduce our mailing costs down. They just didn't want getting our feet wet in this process, messing with their well-established process. They basically said, you folks go on your own for 6 months, 9 months, and get your bugs worked out, and then we'll talk about it again. So it is something that's on down the road, but at least right now, we've kind of got to go be on our own and get this up and running. But we will be using the same company. I've seen some samples of what the bill will look like that Mike is working on, and it gives us an opportunity to get some additional information out to the customer as well. Yeah, and I indicated this before. Right now, township, as far as water sales, they are using about 43.16% of our billed water volumes and about 37.63% of our billed sewer volumes. Again, total revenue at $2.126 million in sales of services to Alpena Township would generate about 34.35% of our total $6.19 million in revenue. So at the 35%, 34.35%, it's less than either the percentage of the volume of water bill or sewer bill. And that is pretty much it. I'm sure that has answered every possible question the council could ever come up with.
Maybe just not a whole point.
It was worth a shot.
Yeah. I just, one question I've got right off the bat, Rich, is over the last, and I know you wouldn't have exact numbers on this, but how many projects have we missed, or have we had to kick back and continuously kick back because you haven't had the revenue to complete? You have like a gut feeling on that? Are we talking?
Every year in the front, actually the front couple pages of our budget, what there's a list of capital improvement projects that the city has requested to be funded. And then as we go through the budget process, we have to start, can't afford that, can't afford that, can't afford that. And those are all listed. I believe in sewer it was about 300, last year it was about 300,000. And in the sewer fund, I think it was around 550,000. It was not fundable because we just didn't have the revenue. That varies obviously from year to year. And we could actually go through and we could put that chart together of over the past, as long as we've been including those in our budget, exactly what we have had to delay or.
Are we going to see some of
It's
that?
page 5 in the budget, just if anybody wants to go online, citizens. It's great, it outlines it all.
And that's for the last year.
It's the final CIP and then
Okay.
what we actually were able to budget of that.
And that's not just for sewer and water,
Yeah,
that's for
it's
every
everything.
fund.
Yeah, so when we go through the CIP tomorrow, you'll see under water and sewer what we have put down as priorities for the coming year. But we also know we're not going to be funding all those. It's going to be a matter then of prioritizing based upon the actual monies available. And that happens with all departments on all the CIP, but it certainly happens within sewer and water. By our consultant, they are estimating $3.6 or so million per year that we should be spending. We're spending probably under $1 million a year. So less than a third of what they're recommending. Under this proposal, it would bring in 1.9, which is still only 53% of what our needs are based on the CIP. But we knew we couldn't go in and ask for $3.6 million a year because the rates would be totally untenable for anybody to meet. They would simply put probably businesses out of business and drive homeowners out of their home. Eventually, do we want to get there? It would be ideal, but whether we will or not, we don't know. But we felt this was a number that at least got us to a point where we were beginning to make at least headway compared to what we've had over the last probably half dozen years within the capital improvement on water and sewer.
And this is great too, that's in the back of the budget. It's a comprehensive list of all the CIP that, Rich would like to do. It tells what it is, what year we'd like to accomplish it, and then the dollar amounts. And that's everything, not just water and sewer, but they are in here.
Okay.
Last tab in your budget.
And the key is that it's not a wish list. And I always say that from the beginning when I started working with CIP 15 years ago. This is not a wish list of departments. Oh, we'd love like this or like that. These are needs. We know, though, that all needs have to be prioritized. And we've seen some that just get pushed and pushed and pushed until finally we have no choice. We got to shove it up front because it has to be done. But that's how we have budgeted not only for water and sewer, but all departments for capital for the last 20 or so years. It's just become tighter and tighter over the last 10.
I guess that kind of leads to the other question that I had. It's my assumption that when we're doing repairs, we're actually spending more to do an emergency repair than if we do to maintain, kind of like, you maintain your car versus something breaks and you're having it hauled and repaired. Is that a correct assumption?
I would say so. Anytime that you've got, a break in the system where you're out there, doing an emergency repair, you're either probably paying overtime, paying a contractor, you're doing it in crummy weather, you get discomfort to the customer out there. They're without water. Then they have to put up with driving over a patch, for 3 months, 4 months, whatever. So, yeah, it's more costly, and it's really wasted money. If we were systematically replacing those, and we didn't have those number of breaks, that's money that. Those repair dollars are money that's taken away from our replacement dollars that we could use on other projects. Greg had mentioned this generates about 1.9 million. The Gosling-Zubek report indicated we should be at about $3.6 million. When that was presented, I think if anybody sat in this room and thought that we were going to achieve $3.6 million in a short period of time was dreaming. We knew that wasn't the case. And that's what council basically said, go back, see what you can do, see what you can live within. That's what we tried to do with this. You think about it, $1.9 million. It's a lot of money. I won't deny that. Block of sewer and water replacement, $250,000. So, I could do 8 blocks of sewer and water replacement. Oh, I got to take care of the plants. So I've got a wastewater plant and a water plant that I've also have to take care of. I have to do replacements there. I've got to do repairs to the clear well down here. I've got to upgrade pumps. I've got to upgrade motor controls and septage pumps. And those things, those are all dollars that have to come out of that same pot of money. So you start spreading $1.9 million over a collection distribution system with about 70 miles of pipe in it, and then 2 plants. It doesn't go far, but this is a major step in the right direction of where we need to head to achieve that. Will this solve all of our problems? No. Are we going to have to bond and take on additional debt in the future? I can guarantee it. If I've got to replace the clear well down there, which we're talking about in a period of time, that's probably $2-3 million project in and of itself. That there's no way we're going to have $2 or $3 million capital. We're going to have to bond for it. That debt, within that debt repayment, goes into the formula, and we pay that off over the life of that debt. So that's the nice thing about this, is we can almost see, before we incur some debt, what the impact is going to be on the billing rate for that.
Rich, oh, go ahead.
Under this proposal, the percentage of total revenue generated from the township would be 34.35%, which you mentioned is less than their usage with the sewer and the water. And I should know this, and if you don't know off the top of your head, fine, but what would you say was the percent of revenue generated from the township last year?
You're right, I don't know that off the top of my head. I can calculate it, but I don't have it right off the top of my head. But significantly less than that. Well, I'm just going to probably just about tell you. Last year was 1.29. That's just based on the rate, but roughly $1.3 million, because they're going to see about an $806,000 increase. So, yeah, they would be. That's where the 62% comes from. Forgot I had it at the bottom of this chart.
Do you know what our total income then was last year?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
I wasn't sure if it was on there.
I'll ask you what
And
I
I
know
can
you
give you the
know.
percent
Okay.
real quick.
Total revenue in the water?
And I know
Water
too,
and
I
sewer.
think people can hear it.
Yeah.
Any income we bring into the water and sewer fund, aren't we bound legally that we absolutely have to spend that money on water and sewer? We can't take out of that and go put it someplace else, right?
The water and sewer funds operate as enterprise funds. They basically operate autonomous from the city. Now, the one thing we do, the city does provide services to them. We pay their bills. We do the banking for them. We provide certain services, which, by legally acceptable practices and a standard, basically a standard practice, we bill the utilities for those services, and those utilities pay to the general fund for those services that we provide. But there is no money that's transferred from the sewer water fund into the general fund, other than those, and vice versa. There is no money that goes from the general fund to the utility funds. If they can't operate with the funds they have, then we have the rate structure method to ensure that we do have those funds.
Now, if our system was set up differently, like some other areas, and you take that charge and you put it into a general fund, then that money's fair game to be spent however you want.
We do that by choice, is what you're saying. The city does that by choice, not by legal obligation.
I think it's,
Yeah, I don't think we can mix enterprise funds with the general fund.
But creating an enterprise fund, is that required by the state or by audit, GASB or anything that requires that?
We follow GASB, so I would say we're sticking with the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. Two different ways of revenue. The general fund is by property taxes. The enterprise funds are by rates. Mm-hmm.
Well, just out of curiosity, and if you don't want to answer this, that's okay. Does the township have the same set of rules as us? Do they use enterprise? Can they commingle enterprise funds with?
Townships are different, I don't know. And I don't know how they use their money.
But their rules would be different.
Possibly.
Yeah, possibly.
We don't
Some
know.
of their rules are different, so.
So to make a point, some of that $500,000 could be in the general fund.
We don't know.
We don't know,
And we don't speculate. That's, all we can do is operate under what our criteria, our procedures that we're mandated under, and that's what we operate.
So good to know.
Rich, you guys, we've been talking about this rate structure since Zubek was here and did the study. At one point, we talked about doing these rate increases as a phase-in, so they wouldn't be as detrimental, for lack of better terms, to the user. So, is this a phase in? Are we looking at having to do this again next year and the year after, or is that off the table? And so now we're just gonna hit it with this one rate structure and we'll be fine for some period of time.
What we looked at, I mean, when we made this transition from the way we used to bill for water and sewer to this following the rate-making standards, we set this up so that O&M costs cover O&M costs. The charge per thousand covers O&M costs. Charge for debt covers the debt cost. The charge for the billing covers the billing cost. The only really variables that we have in there are that ready to serve charge, which, and I've got the spreadsheet pulled up, but that generates about $678,000 per year in what that generates. The other variable is the infrastructure maintenance charge. And that generates about $1.21 million. That's the money, those are the funds that are available for capital. If those two charges, if the ready to serve charge and the infrastructure maintenance charge went away, we could basically pay our bills. I mean, that's all we could do. So, yeah, we talked about that phased-in approach. When we try it in practicality, it just isn't, that capability isn't there without cutting us short on the ability to do maintenance and replacements in the system.
We looked at what Rich did, I did, Mike, everybody.
I even have one that says Greg's option in here someplace.
Yeah, and I mean,
what was that, what is we know we have to cover O&M, we know we have to cover debt.
right.
We can't shortchange ourselves on that, otherwise we can't operate, and we have to pay our debt.
Yeah.
So it's, what did we see as, what we felt was a minimum amount of money of funding to start with under this formula that we put together, that Rich really put the methodology together to do capital or replacement, whatever. And we did look at a variety of numbers, and we looked at roughly $1.9 million each year and that's sewer and water. That's not for each. That's for both, which is less than $1 million for each of the utilities. Was going to be, well, we really was a minimum for us to have for capital. And that's where we came up with the number. It could have been $1.5 million, it could have been, $2.5 million, or that. But we looked at what did we need, and then of course we began looking at the rates to see what they do. Certainly, if we shrink that number down, those rates go down. But at the same time, we're falling further and further behind on the capital, and that's been our issue over the last dozen or more years, is that except when you did the loan program with the state,
SRF
where we had,
and
for the sewer and water, the council did 2 consecutive 10% increases. But that was to cover the debt payments, basically, for that program. We had to cover that. Otherwise, you wouldn't get the loans and that. And so we did that. But other than that, our rates increases have been quite modest, and that has created the issue. And it's what everybody says, the old cliche of, kicking the can down the road. And we have done that. In fact, we kicked it right down the hill, and it's rolling away. And at some point, it's biting the bullet, and there is a larger increase at one time. If we had been doing this 10 years ago, we probably wouldn't be here talking about this today, because we would be doing gradual annual increases that are due to, cost increases that we face, that we're covering, and maybe a little bit more. We don't have that luxury of doing that, because if that's all we did, we just keep falling farther behind.
Matt, I guess to answer the other part of your question, what do you see in the future? Under my O&M and debt, I've tried to account for that. I've looked at not only our current year, but 3 years out, using projections. I guess the way I see this really happening is if we accept this and we move forward, every year, and probably about this time before we go into the budget process, that we can come back here and we can say, okay, our last year's projections were based on this. Hey, look, we sold more water, our water sales are up, or our water sales are down. Look, we've taken on this additional debt, we have to put that in the fund, and we can basically show where we're at compared to what we projected. And we can also I see this as a rolling 3 years. As we go forward, I can knock the last year off, I can put the next year on as we do the budget process, and we can look at that. But every year, I see this as coming back and providing a report to the council. This is what we said it was going to be, this is what it actually was, this is what the rates should be going forward. Whether it's an increase, decrease, I mean, we've got some options. So that's kind of the way I kind of see it happening.
Okay. Yeah, and I certainly wouldn't question your being able to justify all the costs. I mean, we see where you got them all from. I was just trying to see because we did talk a little bit about a phase process. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things from what you've proposed. The declining block rate, are the affected businesses, have they been adequately informed that that's our plan?
No, this is basically the first time that this has been presented publicly.
Okay.
So no, they have not at this point in time. I'm sure they will tonight, tomorrow. But that is something we can do. Is we can look at those folks that are affected. Basically, Lafarge, the hospital, possibly the college.
Schools.
Any others, Mike?
School district inquiries through their budgeting process, they normally call us and they'll ask us if there's going to be any anticipated rate increases.
Okay, so
I've informed Lafarge already, and the hospital's already been informed that things may change.
Okay.
But we didn't have, at the time that I talked to them, we didn't have a real good feel for what it was going to be.
Right. Thanks, Mike. And Rich. And the other thing is, I noted when you were doing this that now there won't be blocks of any kind, but there'll be so if I use 2,800 gallons of water, I'm going to be charged for 2,800 gallons of water. Not
it'd be in 2,000 or it'd be in 1,000 gallon blocks.
So now it's
So if
smaller.
you're 2,800,
that is smaller than it was before.
Yeah, before it was a 6,000 gallon.
Okay, I thought so.
But if you use 2,800, you're going to be billed for 2. And we've had this inquiry from some people. One time they may use two gallons, but they really use 2,950 gallons. The next time they use 3 gallons because they've rolled over. So it's just based on where that 1,000 gallon break point is. But yeah, if you use
1,000 gallons is pretty significant compared to 6,000 gallons. So
it's a big reduction. And that, like I said, that was an attempt to try to make it a little more palatable for that 11% of our customers that use 1,000 gallons or less per month.
it's kind of all my questions. Very simple.
I got a few things that we're going to have council discussion. One of the things I'm struggling with, for the last year or so has been the phase-in, as you brought it up, and the problems being created over the last 12 years, but yet we're introducing rates that increase anywhere from 29 to 49%. So one of the things that I'm at least throwing out for discussion is a phase-in of getting to these rates over a 2-year period rather than implementation right off the bat. I'm not one to kick it down the road, kick the can or whatever we were saying, but I think a 2-year plan to start maybe between where we are and what the proposed rates are. What does that look like? And then also, beginning or, April of 2015, implementing these rates. I mean, there's a little bit of a phase-in period at that time. So I just think that, in my mind, as I said, we're not at that point where the problems weren't created just this year or last year, but yet we're asking our citizens to jump into a much higher rate to make up and go forward at that higher rate. So, I mean, obviously, I believe Rich and Greg would have an opinion on that, and I definitely would love to hear that. But that's one of the areas that I'm struggling with. I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, we discussed it this afternoon for a considerable period of time, and I relayed it on to Rich, and we discussed it. Mm-hmm. And then actually, Karen and Rich and I got together to talk about that idea and what, was it good, bad, or indifferent. We do have some misgivings about it. For one, we've seen it with the meter change out, that there has been conservation that people have, just from the expectation that, well, these meters are going to be more accurate, they're going to charge us for more water, so we just control our water usage. Except for the ready-to-serve charge and the billing charge, all the other charges...
Not the building charge.
Or not, yeah.
Infrastructure maintenance.
No. Other than the ready-to-serve and the billing, the rest are based on usage.
Yes.
Of per 1,000 gallons. That is whether it's O&M, debt, or the infrastructure charge. Our guess is when rates go in, we'll probably, what Rich has put together there is based on current usage. Mm-hmm. I think none of us would be surprised if we saw a 10% drop in that usage once the rates go in. Now, when we do that, we still have to pay the O&M and the debt and the billing charge are there no matter what. So where it will come out of, if we have a lesser usage, is the commodity charge or the infrastructure charge will be reduced also, which goes towards capital. The other is we have the ready-to-serve charge, but if we're short on O&M or on debt, we're going to have to take it out of either that infrastructure or out of the ready-to-serve charge, which is a flat fee that everybody would pay, in order to cover. So that's one thing that we really don't know. We may be totally wrong. Maybe we have the same amount of usage. Maybe usage increases, which does increase, but I'm not expecting that. But we would not at all be surprised to see a decrease, which would impact us. Now, we could have set the rates based on a decrease, but we would have probably just come back to you with a higher rate. So to reduce it even more would be a difficult thing in terms of the impact on that capital, because our feeling is there's probably going to be some reduction anyways. The other is just to take it, and what we had talked about and you had mentioned was like having the increase, half of it now, the other half in April of 2015.
Yes.
The thing is, it's hard, if not impossible, just simply to have the rate. Because right now, the ready-to-serve charge is a flat rate. So that's not something that you can easily just cut out. And of course, the billing rate is what it costs us to bill. So we aren't going to change that. So any changes would be in those other three per 1,000 gallon rates. O&M, debt, or the infrastructure. So if we reduce those, we will, again, if we reduce the O&M one, we're just going to have to draw that money out of the ready-to-serve charge or the infrastructure anyways, because we have to cover those costs the same as the debt. And so that's kind of a problem that we see in terms of trying to phase it. We look at it that we are phasing it. What was recommended to be done and what we're doing are two different things. It is a phased approach. over time, yes, we'd like to see that number increase from 1.9, 2.2, 2.5 million. How soon we're going to be able to do that, we don't know. A lot of it depends. If the economy, as it's turning around, there's increased business activity, increased usage, a lot of that can take care of itself and increase those numbers without necessarily big increases in rates, the only increase being inflationary to cover costs of utilities and so forth. But those are the things what Rich says when we want to make, and he would be making a report every year so that you can see those things. And then determinations can be made on what the new rate structure is going to be, because ultimately you'll have to approve that as part of the budget each year. So we look at it, it isn't setting the rates and then we're done. This is an ongoing 12-month, 365-day-a-year monitoring and then reporting back to you at least at a yearly, maybe every 6 months in terms of where we're at and how this is going. It's the same with the meters. You know, we've seen, and it's mentioned in the fact sheet, that we've had a decrease in what we call lost water because of around 7%. It's not the 20% that was initially projected by the consultants. We used a 10% to be conservative, and it actually came out around 7%. But that was only over 8 months. We haven't even had a year yet of those to really know. And the same thing would be with these rates, is that we need a year or two to see what they do. You know, are they adequate? Are they not? You know, if they're adequate, we can say, fine, we're there at that point, and for a while we can live with it. If it isn't, we need to tell you that. But we can't give you a totally accurate projection because we take it based on the best numbers we have and extrapolate them out and say, here's what we're
and I
assuming now they're going to be.
I don't want them to be confused that I'm thinking that, you know, we come in around half and then we go to another vote within the next year or anything like that. What I'm proposing is just that half, we put together a 2-year plan that basically says, let's start here and then we implement this the next year without a vote, that we know we're going to go down this path. You know, in my thoughts where it's a little bit more palatable to the consumer. I mean, I did, you know, a bunch of research and I couldn't find utilities that were jumping prices from 29 to 47%, you know, all at once. And that's my main concern right there. And we're talking, you know, sometimes it's $27, you know, for a consumer or something, which doesn't sound like a lot, but to some people, that's a lot. You know, that's a lot of people on limited incomes and can mean a lot. If it means, you know, capital being pushed back a year to get everybody to this point and then implementing after that point these rates, because if you're not looking at all of the projects we have coming up and you can't understand that we need to get to these rates and we need to generate 1.9 million, then you're looking at the wrong sheet of music. We need to. I know that, and I understand that. What I'm
and
proposing
actually
is
above that.
Yeah, and I understand that.
above.
I understand that. I'm just proposing that we phase it in, you know, and of course it'll be up to council for us to get to that point.
I think, and Rich, jump in on this, I think what we would want to do, if that is something the council seriously wants us to look at, we have 2 weeks till the next meeting, is let us put together some numbers, because the thing is, I think it's still, I don't think you're going to see that, whatever that rate is right now, that it's simply going to be, whatever the increase is, simply cut in half. It may be more than half, because there are certain numbers we can't or shouldn't be touching, and it's basically dealing with certain of the per 1,000 gallon rate numbers.
Understood.
So we certainly can bring that back if that's what the council wants us to do. We do caution that if we do that, it is causing another year with a lesser amount that we've already got issues, and we know there are things that need to be done. And it's not because we haven't been, we have been accused of mismanagement and not paying attention to our system. We have done that. I think the amount of money we've invested in the last 10 years shows that. It's just that we know we have a system. Our system is 100+ years old, both water and sewer. And
Some of it.
okay, some of, no, okay, but from its initiation. And that anytime you have something older, it needs repair and upgrade. All you gotta do is look at human bodies and how many people have have new hips, new knees, new whatever, because the body wears out. Our system wears out. When it does, we replace it. Fortunately, it doesn't all wear out at the same time. And so we do it gradually, but it does need to be done, and I think we've done an excellent job with the monies we've had. But we are falling behind despite that.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement. I mean, I kind of look at the whole thing that we all do here with our homes. I mean, I would love to have a new roof and the kitchen redone this year. That's not going to happen, you know, but the roof does have to be replaced. So then you start getting to the point of what do I have to do? And you guys have done an excellent job with that so far. So I just, you know, I would at least be interested in seeing what the numbers are.
I think as long as we're looking at the numbers, we also have to look at the reality of the situation. I'm as empathetic as anybody with people who are on fixed incomes and needy and having one thing right after another come at them. At the same time, that operative word, fixed income, is not going to change next year or the year after that or the year after that. And so maybe we keep that in mind as well while we're looking at the numbers, and we look at the good of the whole citizen, the whole citizenship rather. Look at our system.
I guess, and I'm not going to use this as a base of justification for these rates. But just think about it as a comparison. Here's a residential customer. I got it highlighted up there. Residential customer using 10,000 gallons. We can go to the 15,000 gallons. Okay, let's go to 15,000. Their monthly bill, monthly proposed bill is going to be $67.34.
Can you enlarge that, Rich? Just hit the.
Oh, good.
I got old eyes. I can't help it.
I know he's.
Even with these on, I'm struggling. So
I was doing this earlier today for Greg. So
yeah. Numbers I can read.
Okay. $67.34 a month for water and sewer service. Essential service. I'm going to go down a dangerous road here, but you can live without cable TV. You can live without your cell phone. You can live without a lot of other things. Water and sewer is an essential need. That, because we're a government agency, government entity, we control it. We also have to cover our costs. It's a lot of money, you know, on top of everything else. But when you really think about it, I would dare say somebody's got a 15,000 gallon per quarter, 5,000 gallon a month usage. I would bet their gas bill's higher than that, their electric bill's higher than that. I put a lot more than that in the tank of my vehicle at the gas station, and that doesn't last me a month. You know, when you try to put this into perspective of the service you're getting, a life essential service, and the cost that you're paying per month compared to a lot of other things. Electricity's essential, gas is essential. I would bet that over the last month, everybody's gas bill was significantly higher than $67.34. You know, I can tell you my cable bill is 3 times that over. You know, those are life choices that I make, and that's not the same for everybody. But at the same time, it is, to try to put it in perspective, you know, I can easily dump $67 into the gas tank of my car. You know, that's 2 oil changes. I mean, when you start equating it to that, and it's a service that we need, and we're not using that. You need that water and sewer service to try to maximize our revenue stream into that. We're trying to do the bare minimum rate increase, provide the bare minimum dollars that we need. You know, and this was, quite frankly, this is one of the things we looked at when we were looking at what this rate structure was. what it was going to equate out to for a monthly person. You know, part of our rationale for going to a monthly bill was to try to make this a little more palatable. I mean, personally, to get a $180 water and sewer bill every 3 months, I'd much rather have a $60 water and sewer bill every month. It makes it a little more palatable, you can budget for it, and you're not hit by that all of a sudden. I know when my monthly, or my water and sewer bill comes, but you think I remember? Not till I get it in the mail. Holy crap. So, you know, I just wanted to point that out, that when you try to put it in perspective of what the cost for water and sewer service compared to some of the other utility costs, entertainment costs, any of those, I would have to call it a heck of a
I
bargain.
think if you look at it, we really don't have, nor do we as the city, as a utility, have control over what the electric rates are, what the natural gas rates are. And as a homeowner, which most of our customers are, they're residential, over their cable bill or their dish TV, whatever they happen to have, or their phone, except that they can get a different package or whatever. But in terms of what the rates are, those are set by others, and really you don't have any control. I think what is looked at, and that becomes the reason, a part of the rationale in terms of looking at the city is, yes, because all of these bills are going up, plus our gasoline costs, which go all over and we never know what they are, that's why you have to hold the line. And I think part of that is because we're government. And so somehow we are able to do that. And the only one part of government that I know of that can, and I don't know if it's sustainable, and everybody says it isn't over long term, is the federal government, because they can print money. We don't have that option. We don't have also, even at the state level, they've tended to push a lot of things down to the local level in order to balance their books and make their bottom line look good. We don't have anybody really other than the customers. And we don't have other sources of money to throw in there. You know, I suppose we could go to the public, and I think we can do this, but you can tell me if it's not allowed, and ask for a millage to help support water and sewer. I think our chances of getting that approved are probably going to be somewhere between slim and none. So the only thing we have is our rates, and we see other utility costs going up that directly impact our utility, and we do have to deal with it. If we can't pay our bills, we don't have a community, because if you don't have water and sewer, I don't think our city's going to turn back to going on well and septic and work very well or function.
You know, and I get that.
And that's, you know, and again, I don't want to have to go to the general public and say, your rates are going up this much, or to the businesses that are trying to survive here. But at the same time, Rich, Mike, Karen, and I are not doing our job for you, that you've hired us to do, if we don't bring to you what we see as the needs and what those needs cost and what it's going to take as far as rates to meet those needs. Ultimately, the decision is the five of you, and we appreciate and fully understand that, and whatever decision is made by the council is what we implement. But this is based on a lot of hard work, especially more by probably Mike and certainly Rich and Karen, putting these numbers together to say this is what we truly need. And we have had battles and civil battles,
Yes.
back and forth on what these numbers should say. And this is our best recommendation.
Well, the difficult part is going to be sitting here and trying to determine the impossible, and that is how much can the worst off consumer tolerate? How much can, and we can sit here all day, we will never determine that. These numbers are at the very least justifiable for what we need. And if councilman would like any council person would like to come back with a more phased in process, that's fine, but how are you going to know if they come back in 2 weeks and give you a little bit smaller number? How are you going to know that that's even significant in what people can afford? That's what I'm struggling with. So you can bet that I will use 10% less when these are imposed. That's just how I operate.
And that's our assumption, which is my assumption.
And I would assume that there's probably a whole lot of people out there like me until I determine where and how I can fit that into my budget. So that's that at least we've given the consumer the option to do that. A millage, we have given them no option whatsoever. So we haven't really discussed it very much. But at least with rates, we've given them the option, and we've taken that, made that window narrower with the 6,000 gallons. So every 1,000 gallons makes a difference on their bill, and I think we've done a considerable amount to float this. But
And I don't want anyone to, presume that I'm thinking that they didn't do the job or they need
right. I don't think anybody does.
I think they've done an excellent job, and I, for one, totally appreciate all the efforts that we put into this. And when I look at this and I look at what we have to accomplish, I understand and agree that we need to get here at least in the next couple of years. Right. And as you said, it's not to the point where I think someone would say, this is the only thing that we can do, and we got to put it right in there. I've always said from the very beginning, I like phasing in. I like people to have time to be able to either lower the rates or lower their usage, I should say, and prepare for additional. That's why I've always favored this. I will say this, in all the research of what is available, because people will ask you all the time, is there going to be grants, or is there something from the federal government or the state government going to be able to come in and save this and be able to help us with the water department? It's like, this is something I totally feel that we need to take care of as a community. There is no money, from what I can see, or any programs out there that they're going to come in and give us 30-some million over the next 8 years to be able to do this. I just kind of, favor the stepped-in approach, and have from the very beginning.
And we did. We talked about it quite a bit, and I'd be interested, I guess, in what it is and what we can do. I just don't want to. I literally do not want to do this again next year.
I don't either.
It's going to be, or 2 years from now. It's tough enough. If it were enough, if it were a sizable difference in what the increase would be, that it would be a real phase in. I would be. I could entertain that, but to educate the public right now as to what we're doing, and then try and do that again 2 years from now, and it may not be us, when the elections are, but in that time period, it may not be the same 5 of us, and then to have to, so it's not like I want to just come down and say kaboom, but if we've done our best and we have justification for what we're doing. And we certainly can't determine what's affordable for everybody out there. There are programs, obviously, for people that are going to be hit the hardest. But I won't know. You won't know whether it's even, what number is going to be right. It's a struggle, but.
Yep.
Just a couple comments on the phase. And I think originally when that was brought up, we were looking at reaching that $3 million. We were looking at a much bigger jump and thought, well, we really have to phase that in. One thing that you brought up was the percentage jump, which is, depending on what your usage is, it's going to be 30s, 40s. The reason it's going to be such a big jump in percentage is because we've been undercharging grossly for a decade. If we had been phasing in reasonably every single year, we wouldn't be in this position in the first place. So even though the percentage jump is great, if you compare the rate with like a Rogers City or other communities their size, it's really not. It's not extravagant. We're going from way at the bottom to in the middle somewhere on the rates. So the percentage seems pretty big, but it's because we're undercharging. And the bottom line is we haven't charged enough to cover our costs and invest in a system that's old and that has issues. The timing of it being now is part of the reason we haven't had those increases is because we haven't been able to charge the township contractually. And I can't speak to everybody in past councils, but I know my thought process was, well, if we're locked in with this rate with half our customers, basically, I'm not going to make the other half make it up. And we would have had a pretty large discrepancy between what the city paid, what the township paid, to make the money we should have been making in the past. And we might have been able to justify it as, well, we need this revenue, we need to invest, but it would have been so disproportionate, city to township, I wouldn't have been comfortable with it. I don't think some others would have either. So now that that contract expired, it gives us the opportunity to say, okay, what's going to be that fair rate? But again, it's a jump in what we've been paying because, or what we've been charging, because we've been undercharging. So yeah, percentage-wise, that's kind of brutal. But when you look at the monthly billing to communities our size, I mean, I think it's pretty comparable. And we budgeted, we said that our budget, and then not to back Rich up too much on that. That's that, but you do prioritize, and this is what it's going to be. But if we had really done our job the last 10 years or so, we wouldn't be here. We already would have been facing it in. So it's kind of like, nothing, and then all of a sudden we're going to try to make it up. But, I mean, it's going to seem like a big shock.
And that was my point. It's just saying, it's like, is there a spot in between there? I'm not looking to kick it down the road. That's why I said I don't have any ideas of saying, let's just go half. It's like, if we're going to do this, that was my idea for a 2-year phase, and to make sure that we get to these.
Trying to kick it a couple feet.
Not even.
So that was that.
Okay. Well, the thing we did want, as far as the next step, is we weren't asking for any decisions tonight. We do want to announce, and we will get it published as well, probably send it out tomorrow for publication, is that we will have a public hearing on March 3rd regarding the proposed rate structure, at which time any citizen, ratepayer, business, or residential are free to come and express their opinion during the public comment portion of the public hearing, during that. And then our request will be, and we will probably go ahead and draft basically a resolution, motion, whatever, of what we're asking. And of course, certainly you're free to modify that, but it'll give you a template of what we are asking to be adopted, with the intent that if we adopt on March 3rd, they will go into effect April 1st, 1 month later, basically.
Because these rates would affect the township, I guess, indirectly or directly, are they included in the public comment? Or
Absolutely, anybody. It can be any citizen ratepayer that's out in the township. Well, it doesn't have to be a ratepayer, it could be anybody. It is a public hearing, so it is open to anyone, doesn't have to be from the city. Anyone is free to come and speak.
The other thing, Greg had mentioned it before, this slideshow presentation and the fact sheet, the question and answer fact sheet that Greg talked about, that I'll give to the media, is going to be published to the website tomorrow morning, and will be at the library and at City Hall.
Yeah,
and we'll put it over at the utility office.
Okay, we'll have hard copies, and it does have both Rich and my phone numbers, so if people have questions, feel free to call. If they come to me, I'll just pass them on to Rich. But we want to make, if people do have questions, they don't understand something we've said, or have a question about it, we want them to call.
Very good. Thank you, Jeremy. Now you're still here for new business, Rich. Water production plant turbidity meter contract modification.
We go grab that second. Back in November 2013, the city contracted with Perceptive Controls to upgrade the turbidity meters and SCADA equipment at the water production plant.
You are watching All About Alpena.